Well, I think we are precisely at 1 o'clock here today. I'm going to ask all of my panelists to unlock their videos and unlock their mute. And I'm just going to say welcome to all of you joining us here today. Happy Wednesday to you all. I want to begin by welcoming all of you to this third part of our 5-part webinar series. I'm Paul Klassen. I'll be your host today. So once again, welcome. I also want to welcome our panelists of experts today, and I really mean that. These are amazing folks. We have a real lineup for today's session for you. We have Catharine over at Valley to Peak, occupational therapist. Hello, Catharine.
Hi, Paul.
Great to have you back. You're with us for our first webinar. Lovely to have you back. We have Vanessa over at 101 Mobility. Hello, Vanessa.
Hello, Paul.
Fantastic. And Mike over at Digital Lifestyles. Hey, Mike.
Hey, Paul.
Howdy.
Nice to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, so nice to have all of you here. You are all experts in your specific fields. Just a quick update on intros. Catharine is the director of Valley to Peak Occupational Therapy Consultants. Vanessa is the owner of 101 Mobility, so all of your mobility requirements. Mike is president CEO of Digital Lifestyles. We've been working with Mike for many, many years on home automation, and his stuff is the invisible stuff behind the scenes, but behind the walls and behind the drywall. But boy, does it work when you want it to work. So thank you for joining us, all of you. So we're going to just really quickly, before we get started today, if you, as our webinar guests, have watched the video on your webinar invitation, you already know that my childhood heroes were my grandparents for a variety of reasons. But then to later in life see first my grandfather and then later my grandmother suffer from Alzheimer's. I believe my grandmother developed Parkinson's, and to see their level of care requirement really, really impact. I was taught to respect my elders. So to see my grandparents just lose complete mobility was just a devastating thing for me. Decades later, 2 of my nephews contracted debilitating illnesses. And again, I saw their suffering. I saw their loss of mobility, but I also saw the caregiver needs of my family and retrofitting their homes to create the best quality of life we could for my nephews. So those childhood and then adult experiences really shaped how, after 25 years in the upscale renovation market here in Calgary, we decided to launch an accessible division called MyLifetimeHome. That was back in early 2020 of this year. In fact, it was the eve of Valentine's Day. So that backstory kind of explains my passion around this topic, my respect for my elders. It's why we're here today, why we began back in February to educate on this topic via a panel of experts seminar. Of course, that was all just prior to COVID, as you all know. But as a quick background, we hosted our first panel of experts seminar on this topic of aging in place, as I said, on the eve of Valentine's Day. We had a packed out audience at the Tribal Community Center. The engagement that night was fabulous. Intense engagement, and the interest in this topic was obvious and amazing that night. So as we all know, within a month of that event's date, COVID-19 hit. And soon after that, news surrounding outcomes of COVID at senior care centers surfaced. And so as a group of panelists and myself, we just realized this topic more than ever needed some serious discussion, a deeper dive. And so with that panel of experts, back in February, providing education options. It just allows all of us who are aging gracefully, nobody's getting old, of course, we're just aging gracefully. Right, guys? So here we are today with our third of our 5-part webinar series. Every Wednesday at 1 p.m. Invite your friends. We're here to chat and take your questions as well. But our goal is to provide you and your family with objective education on your options on this topic of aging in place. We encourage you to invite your friends. As I said, on today's webinar, we'll be covering a topic that quite concerning for some, and that is, I don't want my house, if I'm going to equip my house to be accessible, or if I have a mobility issue, or my loved one does, or my parents, I don't want it to look medicinal or hospital-like. And the question is, how or can my forever home or lifetime home be both gorgeous and automated, yet fully accessible, all without looking like a hospital room? I think today, you guys are in for a real treat. I know our panelists will be sharing some actual case studies that are going to dispel those concerns in any way. And in some cases, the case studies you see are both gorgeous and automated, yet fully accessible fully invisible in terms of accessible solutions. I can tell you that the knowledge and industry experts of our panels today is absolutely outstanding. You're in for a real treat. And as you can see from our 5-part series here, we're covering a broad range of topics, all of which are designed to help you choose where you live and the quality of life you live as you age gracefully, with or without a disability. So if I can reiterate that, this is all about helping you choose where you live and the quality of life you live. So all of that to say, quick housekeeping note before we jump into our first panelist. Please do type your questions into the chat line. We'll do our best to answer them either during or after today's webinar. If we can't answer your question, we can certainly take a private Zoom call with you as well. And hot off the press, we're going to, if you're joining us for the first time, we have an ebook gift for all of you at the end of the session. So make sure you claim that ebook at the end of today's session. It'll show you both a renovation cost guide for accessible makeovers, but also provide pros and cons on staying in your home versus moving to a villa or senior care center. I got to tell you, I am so excited because everybody in our panel, we've got, I think, 9 panelists in our webinar series. All of these folks contributed to that pros and cons doc, and we are so excited to be involved and show that to you. I think it's going to be a great resource for all of you. So here, let's get started. As I mentioned earlier, joining us on today's webinar, we have Catharine from Valley to Peak OT Consultants, Vanessa from One-on-One Mobility, and Mike from Digital Lifestyles, and myself from My Lifetime Home. So once again, welcome to all of you. Jumping right in. So Catharine, we're going to start with you. We started with you on our first inaugural webinar. So welcome again.
Thanks, Paul, for having me back. Yeah, always happy to chat OT with you.
I know you are. It's like all of us. We eat, breathe, and sleep for industry. And it's not because for most of us on this panel, I would suggest for all of us, this is not just a job or a title. This is a passion.
Absolutely.
I know I can speak for you on that. So I'm just going to, I really enjoyed the insight you brought on our first webinar. Really looking forward to what you have for us on today's webinar again. But jumping right into today's topic, just to helping our webinar guests understand that their home can still look gorgeous after collaborating with an OT. Let's jump into my first question in this first slide. So Catharine, help us understand what benefits occupational therapy can bring to someone considering aging in place, staying in their own home.
Mm-hmm. Of course. So a little bit biased, obviously, but many benefits of using an occupational therapist. The first one really being that you would be bringing in someone who is a medically trained rehabilitation specialist, typically with a bachelor's or a master's degree. And they're bringing in this medical rehabilitative lens. We're not bringing in like an equipment lens. We don't know too much about construction or finance or that side of things, but we're really there to help you sort of anticipate either the progression of a condition and help you plan from a functional medical perspective. So we look at doing functional and standardized assessments. So we base it all on research. A lot of it is show me how you do this. We look at your mobility. We look at your independence, your accessibility, as well as your cognition, your family support, how you do your day-to-day activities. And really, we provide more of a holistic, functional approach to assessing not just you, but your environment, really beyond accessibility and renovations. And then the great thing of working with some of the local occupational therapists is they're connected with the contractors, obviously, with designers, with vendors. So we keep up to date on some of the equipment and styles, but we really rely on the vendors like One-on-One Mobility to really sort of help us out with the most up-to-date, coolest looking, most discreet, gorgeous equipment to kind of get away from some of that institutional look and make it a little bit more like your forever home and keep it nice and discreet as opposed to keeping it too medical looking.
Awesome. Yeah. And I mean, that you mentioned something near and dear to our hearts. And of course, the topic of today's webinar is how do you make it look gorgeous? You used a lot of adjectives that I'd like to steal from you. Gorgeous, seamless, and non-medicinal, all of the above. So definitely. Yeah, thank you for that. And giving some insight into what an OT really does. I like that because each one of us are specialists in our own field, and you just brought that out in total clarity. So thank you. So my next question then is in 2 parts. If our webinar guests didn't or don't have a progressive health condition, but anticipate needing some home modification in the future, when would you suggest we start, or they should start thinking about this?
So fantastic news. Obviously by joining us today, you've already taken the first step. And we think it's a fantastic first step. We're happy that you're all here today. It's always better if you can to plan ahead. It just gives you more time for researching different options, working out what you really want versus need, sorting out finances, logistics. It's just a generally less stressful endeavor. So if you can, we strongly support being proactive rather than reactive. Just a lot more options. So definitely the sooner the better, but if there's no immediate rush, then you've got a little bit of time.
It's funny, Catherine. I know that we all plan for retirement. We plan for a kid's education. And what we many times fail to plan for is how we're going to live out physically the last portion of our lives. You know, and I say last portion, I'm young-ish, but I am still in that demographic that is moving into that last segment of life, if you will. But even then, I mean, how do we want to live physically? We have finances arranged, we have kids, you know, we got the house, all that stuff, travel, but this proactive element just seems to lose traction. So thank you for sharing that. What I want to segue right into my next question is, so do those changes need to be done to our entire home as I start this process, or could it be phased and compartmentalized?
Oh, of course. I think you bring up a great point too. Like, it's really hard you can't really plan ahead for a mobility limitation or for an illness or a health condition if you don't have a progressive health condition. So in terms of changing your entire home at once, absolutely not. It's completely up to you. Some clients like to make a plan, do all the modifications at once, and then not have to think about it ever again and just enjoy their home. Some people don't need all of the modifications just yet. They're just sort of thinking and planning ahead. And then some people aren't ready sort of, you know, emotionally and mentally to change their whole home all at once. So they opt to have the modifications done phase by phase. There really isn't a right or wrong way to do it. And the experts can provide you with different options, different quotes, and they can always complete rough-in work, which Paul can speak a lot more to, because that's his side of, that's his world, not mine. But they can complete the rough-in work so that when you're ready to make a change, things are sort of already set up, good to go. It just makes it quicker and easier, and I think a little bit cheaper down the road too. So definitely you don't need to change the whole home at once. But if you want, we've definitely had have clients who have decided, nope, I just want to get it all done with. Let's change everything now, get used to it, and just leave it like that for the next 10, 20 years. So Indeed. It's up to you. Yeah.
Yeah, and on that note, Catherine, I'm going to bring up a couple of case studies in a second here. Actually, I like that how that you brought that up, because you know, proactively roughing in items is such an easy endeavor. For example, if you're doing a kitchen renovation or you're doing a bath renovation and you don't think you need all the mobility installations now, there's some really inexpensive rough-in work you can do that just sets you up for success. So I'm going to talk about that in a second. So thank you for that. There's a couple things I think that maybe you're asking me, Catherine. I know that if we can segue into, you know, that rough-in piece, I'm going to bring, if you're okay with this, I'm going to bring a couple of slides up. Let's just go to that. But I'm just going to hand the podium to you for a second.
Perfect. Yeah. So Paul, like me and Vanessa, you've worked with clients of sort of both ends of the spectrum. We've worked with people from the luxury of being able to be completely proactive to people who have unfortunately had to be more in the crisis and the reactive mode. So perhaps you can share a couple of case studies from either end with us and sort of how you've been able to help them with those.
Right, and you know, I may have overstepped my my bounds a bit here. I just wanted to make sure I hadn't stopped you from kind of addressing that crisis thing, because we've talked so much about proactive. Just before I jump into my case studies, could you just share maybe some occupational therapy help on that crisis side?
Oh, of course, yeah. So as healthcare providers, we know that sometimes life happens, the unexpected happens, and you need help fast. So luckily OTs, we're not just experts in home renovations and planning ahead, we're also great at responding in crises. So we can complete urgent home care or pre-hospital discharge assessments. We can make sure your home is safe and accessible to you after an illness or injury. We can help you set up home care, connect you with some of our amazing vendors, help you with rental and purchase of medical equipment to make the home safer and more comfortable. So really we can help address your most urgent needs first, and then down the road help you anticipate more of those future temporary or permanent needs, and ensure that you have the support services and information that you need in order to be safe, functional, and just happy and stress-free within your home. So yeah.
I like that. I like that a lot. And I'll just segue right into some of the questions you asked me on the spectrum. So from crisis to completely proactive, I'm going to bring a couple of case studies up just to leverage your statement about rough ends. If I can get the next slide, please. This happened to be more of it was a combination of crisis. I mean, who plans for a debilitating car accident? I don't think any of us do, but this lovely young lady in her 20s had a pretty awful car accident, and so she needed an immediate retrofit to her home, and so that's how this kind of evolved. And to your point, Catherine, there are times when you just need to bring that OT in and just assess the situation up front. This particular lady would also need progressive care. So things like transfers, lifts, slings, all of that. So, you know, just a real value add there. So she was just a lovely client, and you can see based on the slides here that I asked the question because of the context of today's webinar. Do you see anything medicinal about that? I mean, the wheelchair sitting there gives it away, but that is a suspended countertop with hidden brackets, so the young lady can help prepare meals at lunch. And of course, Puppy is there patiently waiting. So on the left-hand side, we've got, we took a 3-bedroom down to a 2-bedroom. They needed immediate solutions, and we're able to put that 48-inch barn door in, and you swing that, they roll that barn door open, and there's a beautiful rolled-in shower, big enough for her and her OT, not her OT, sorry, her caregiver, to help her with the showering and toiletering. So it's just awesome how that turned out. If we can, this one is the one I want to talk about in terms of proactive. Now that was crisis, this is proactive. So we've got some beautiful things in here from Vanessa's group at One-on-One Mobility. This particular client was able-bodied. She happened to be in the healthcare world, so she knew about progressive illnesses or setting herself up for success. So to your point, Catherine, they rented the whole house so they could live in it for life with all the proactive measures put in. So for example, that entire bathroom is lined with 1/2-inch plywood before we drywalled. So any grab bar of any size, shape, and notation could be added to that bath at a later date without an issue. We also roughed in a chair lift for their staircase. So there's electrical all there ready for a chair lift. Widen the doorways, hallways, the kitchen. If we go to the next slide, you'll see a couple more items there. I just want to show you the beauty of the bath. And as you look into this shower, I just ask, what do you see about this that looks medicinal, hospital-like, institutional?
Nothing. It's prettier than my bathroom.
It's gorgeous.
It's gorgeous. It looks like a spa. Yep.
Indeed. And that's what it's supposed to feel like. But all of Vanessa's product is in there. So this is the Invisia line of those soap holders in the back are not just pretty little things hanging in the corner. Those are 300 to 500 pound torque opportunities on those. The grab bars are beautifully shaped. The toilet paper holder, the towel bar, those are all intentional, and yet they look invisible. Yeah. And that's the whole point. So yeah, those are proactive measures. Maybe the next slide, I think I've got one more here of the kitchen here. Yeah, you just see the gracious corridors, all the drawers, everything's available on a wheelchair or on your hands and knees. There's no hands and knees crawling into the back of a cupboard here. And it's beautiful, right? So what would you say about that kitchen that looks medicinal?
Again, absolutely nothing, right? It's all set up fantastically so that it is extremely accessible, and I can pick it apart with my OT lens. But I'd say to the average Joe, who just come in and see just a gorgeous home.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, and I mean, it's interesting because I deal with seemingly with a lot of healthcare providers, and one of my doctor clients right now said, "Nope, I am not going the route of everybody, and that is a white kitchen. I've seen enough white in my life."
Yeah.
Yeah, in OR and all of that. So no white, no white in my home. So anyway, that's kind of an interesting comment on that. But just the next slide, please. I think that's pretty much it for my case studies. Oh, there's a couple more there. So again, that's the basement bath. Again, we've got it all equipped with the lift. So it's all roughed in, ready to go for a lift. You can see the towel bar, paper holder, the shower corner cubby. All of that is all the Invisalign. And it's, to its brand name, it's invisible, but gorgeous. Curbless shower on both floors. So roll in, walker, whatever you need to do. So anyway, that's the proactive world, and both the crisis and the proactive, to show you the two sides to that. So thank you so much, Catherine, for wading in. Is there any other questions you have for me on that invisible side?
No, I don't believe so. I just like to point out, like, the fantastic thing about being proactive if you can, or even with the crisis, no matter which way you sort of have to approach it. I love that it's discreet, it's there, but no one else would really know that it's there. And if you don't need it, then you don't need to use it, but it's there and it's ready to go. Like the grab bars that are set up in the bathroom, like the towel racks and the soap bars that can hold the 300 or 500 pounds. But if you don't need it, then they're still useful. They're still beautiful, functional, grab bars, and towel racks and soap bars. So yeah,
Yes.
they look really beautiful.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I could add a couple of ad-lib comments there for sure, but I mean,
Yeah.
All of us know that there might be the morning after that we need some help, even from the toilet paper holder, right?
Yeah.
Or just the last panelist mentioned one of her clients had double hip surgery.
Oh.
So imagine, I mean, my wife had tore a couple of her Achilles heel tendons, which was brutal.
Yep.
So you don't plan on that stuff, right?
No.
So all this non-medicinal looking product in there, and the plywood behind the drywall just allows you to immediately add another towel bar if you need, or grab bar. But of course, from 101 Mobility, which we're going to segue right into. So thank you, Catharine. Again, valuetopeak.ca is her website, www.valuetopeak.ca. Thank you for joining us, Catharine. That was awesome.
Thanks, Paul.
Fantastic. We're going to segue right into Vanessa. Hello, Vanessa.
Hi, Paul.
Great to have you join us. And I know that you're under a little stress today.
Your wife, thank you, Paul, for lending me your wife, is receiving all of my elevators.
Yes. And I mean, this is COVID 101, right? Like, sorry, the 101 Mobility was not meant to be a play on that, but it is literally the COVID condition we're all in. We're doing an elevator with you, and we've been waiting for those parts. How many times were we promised them? At least 3 times?
There have been a number of delays.
Yes, yes. So I know you're stressed, and we kind of stepped in and hopefully help. We're a team, right? Yeah, you're welcome. We have a client that's so ecstatic about getting their elevator. They're in their 80s, and they are not moving to a villa or senior care facility for love of money. And so their 2-story home is getting a 4-stop elevator, and it's about to be delivered. Thanks to you, Vanessa. So just great to have you join us. I know you're the local owner of a North American franchise with every mobility solution imaginable. I know that you have access to the very basic, what I would call medicinal looking grab bar, all the way to the gorgeous and non-institutional looking product. I think we all agree that nobody wants their home looking like a hospital, from a 10-year-old living with CP or an 88-year-old full-bodied looking for an elevator. They all want it to look gorgeous, right?
Absolutely.
You bet. And you've done a lovely job, and your franchise group has done a lovely job of sourcing some great products. So Vanessa, you recently equipped a forward-thinking middle-aged couple, which we just had their slides up, who tricked out their home in an aging in place suite of projects. We just showed you these, but again, you tell me, do you see anything institutional about this home? It's kind of a restatement of our question earlier for Catharine. Anything about this home that you see institutional?
Absolutely not. So what we want for all of our clients is not only for them to be safe, but for them to have choices. And so the products that we try to find for people, we try to find things that will fit their physical needs, but also their aesthetics. And so with this particular couple, they chose a silver kind of a finish on all of their products, but all of these products come with different colors of finishes, wood types, so that you have something that's absolutely functional beyond words, but it's also beautiful. And so, no, to me, I just look at that and I think it's a day in the spa, personally.
Agreed. And, you know, this is a question I have asked Catherine as well, but I'm going to ask you in a different way. But, you know, when you look at all of this, this is a forward-thinking couple. Not all of your clients, I would suspect that many of your clients, if not most of them, are tending to lean towards crisis, where they've had an illness prognosis, or suddenly they have a hip replacement, or, you know, God forbid, something worse. But when do you suggest that we begin looking for solutions and products if we'd rather not move?
Well, when you should start looking, if you're asking the question, then you should be looking now. According to one study, almost 90% of seniors over the age of 65, they want to live at home rather than moving to a nursing home or assisted living facility. We hear that all the time. And I know for myself, my sisters, my brothers, all of the people that I used to work with, because I've retired once, as we hit into our 60s, 70s, and I have one brother who's almost 80, this is exactly the way all of us are feeling. We want our homes to be a safe place where we can remain for the rest of our lives. My daughter, her analogy, Catherine kind of touched on this, is that if you start planning now, the choices you have are huge. If you're planning a holiday and you plan it well in advance, you get to choose what kind of flight, you get to choose the hotel, you get to choose a whole bunch of different tours, et cetera, that you might want. Plus you get great deals. So if you start your planning now, you get a huge choice of product. You can decide how you're going to stage this. Maybe you're going to do your bathrooms this year. Maybe you're going to do something else next year. But you get better choice of products. You get better choice of materials. You probably get things at a deal, and you're doing it in a leisurely way in the style that you want. You're not in a panic mode. Like, based on the findings that I read a lot of studies, and what I find seniors typically are not aware of is that they don't proactively plan for their future. We have so many people who say they finally get a curved stair lift in it, and the first comment they always make is, I wish I would have done this years ago.
Indeed.
And so there's sometimes that people think that, well, you know, like, I'm giving into my sickness or I'm giving into my illness. And it's not. Like, we put these lifts in for young mothers who need to have their dog, their stroller of children, and their coffee and their whatever. We put lifts in to get them in, because we actually had a young mother who actually hurt herself because she couldn't move her twins into the house. So she had a vertical platform lift put into her house.
Perfect.
It has nothing to do with age. It has to do with function and how you can best live in your life, or live your life in your house.
Yeah. No, that's extremely well said. And I'm just going to segue into that whole product line of, you know, our whole context today is, how do we keep this looking amazing, not medicinal, and yet accessible? You used a great example of a younger lady that needs this product or something to offset her life and what she dealt with. So are there any choices of product out there on the market, Vanessa, that will keep us safe and yet not look institutional? Can I get both safety and non-institutional?
Absolutely. So 101 Mobility has partnered with companies from around the world, as there are so many countries who have demographics very similar to ours. There are lots of people who are aging, but they wish to stay in their own homes in the style that they like. So universal design. It's a design of a home that can be accessed and used to the greatest extent possible by everybody, regardless of their age, size, and ability. So before, you had mentioned a barrier-free shower. A barrier-free shower is an excellent example, where people who are in a wheelchair, who are with a walker, or the very young, can easily use it. So it can be used by everybody. All of those grab bars that you were showing us earlier, those are all ADA compliant. They can hold up to 500 pounds, but you would never ever guess it.
Exactly.
We have products from Denmark, my favorite. It really is my favorite. It's a set of stairs that when the user comes up to it, it turns into a platform and can lift the user so that they can just go off. Once they're gone, it knows that they're gone. It turns back into a set of stairs.
Wow.
And we have seen pictures of these where, because you pick obviously the finish that you want, but we've seen pictures where they have matched the finish of other stairs in the house so that in the pictures, you can't tell what's real stairs and what's product.
Wow.
Because they just blend in that perfectly. So yes, but it's not just things from around the world. We like to bring in as many Canadian options as we can, lots of Alberta options. And one of my favorite companies, and I won't say their name, although I really want to, is actually a Calgary company. They have lifts that are super innovative, interesting, they're cost effective, they ship around the world. And why we partnered with them is because we use them so much in our rental program. Because for some people, if they're recovering from a surgery, if they just fell and they hurt themselves, they just need something that's temporary. So we like to provide temporary options as well.
Well, you rolled right into a segue I'll mention to you is, you referred a client to us that is putting a 4-stop elevator in, but he just recently purchased his home. He needs a temporary solution, and you stepped in. You have temporary ramps. He's going to be able to get access to his home, all the floors temporarily through your rental program. So that's a great piece. Again, I say this, and I hope I don't offend anybody, but it's, kind of like my finance seminar. There are so many myths out there or misunderstood elements. People just aren't aware of their options. But the whole intent of this webinar series was just to educate. There's so many things you can do, and you can remain in your own home. So thank you, Vanessa. I've got one more question for you, just jumping in, but you have you've got this vast array of product line, as well as your website that provides some great kind of starting points. The slide that's on the screen right now is both an aged couple and a young boy with a debilitating illness. And of course, you can see his brothers are enjoying that lift as much as he is. I think you told me the story. Didn't they wear out the battery on it?
They did. We kept saying, we keep telling people, oh, don't worry, there's a key. Like your grandchildren won't play on it, and they're kind of slow and boring. These kids love that lift so much. They played on it for 4 hours. Yeah, they killed the battery, but they're just so lovely.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So awesome. I mean, what a neat, way just to help that young boy feel inclusive with his family. His brothers are enjoying his new piece of equipment as much as he needs it. So that's awesome. So, you've got all this product line and from around the world available. It could be overwhelming. Is there a team of people who could walk our listeners through that are properly trained and equipped? To Catherine's point, she's got the occupational therapist lens. You've got the equipment lens. I've got the installation and the whole rental lens. Is there somebody on your team that has the right solutions that can help with those?
Yeah, there are so many reasons why people want to remain in their own homes. And we hear, like the main reason is the clients, they're always looking at financial, first of all, like nursing homes, assisted living facilities, they're expensive, as pointed out in these presentations by Pinnacle. And so for many of us who've retired from our first careers, we've already paid off our house. And so for us, we view our home as our personal sanctuary. And so we want to stay there forever. And so there is a team of people who can help. If people are not sure, the first thing I do is I bring on a Catharine. I bring on a professional medical person who can assess the home, can assess the needs of the person who's living in the homes, and then we can start planning accordingly. Like Catharine mentioned, you don't have to redo your whole home. For myself, I'm starting off with my bathroom because bathrooms are probably the number one place where people fall. There's lots of sharp edges. There's lots of things that can hurt you. And so once I've spoken to a Catharine and kind of found out what my needs might be, and in my case, I get to speak to a spinal surgeon as well, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come to a Paul, a Pinnacle, and I'm going to say, Paul, what are some ideas of how I can integrate these needs of mine for the next 20, 30 years and design a bathroom? Well, I've now had 3 people who have just helped me out. Maybe I'll have to go to a Mike and say, Mike, I want to have I want to be sitting in my spa-like bathroom and watching television. Oh, and maybe seeing who's at my front door. Mike, do you have a digital solution for that? Well, I just brought in a fourth person. There's a team of people here who can help people make the decisions that they need to make to keep them in their houses safely. And as far as product, my favorite product recently was one that Catharine, she had a client who sent us a picture. And so I sent it to my network, which is probably about 90 different people around North America, and said, have you ever seen this before? Do you know what this product is? And we actually ended up finding a product that was very similar that will do the job. It's kind of not shipping right now during COVID, but it will ship again. It will ship again. We can get it. But that's another excellent example of a client who had a very specific need, found something that he really wanted online, sent us a picture, well, sent Catharine the picture. Catharine sent it to me. I sent it to my team. Point is that he's going to get exactly what he needs.
Awesome.
So yes, long story short, yes. There's
Beautiful.
people.
Beautiful. And yeah, that was the whole point of this webinar series. We started with the seminar back in February. You were on that panel back then, Vanessa, and it's just been an awesome group. Catharine happened to be an attendee that night and has joined our team because the OT that would join us then is in retirement. So yes. Catharine is kind of in the midst of her career. So thank you, Catharine. Thank you, Vanessa, again for this. That was fantastic. So all of you watching, www.101mobility.com/Calgary is the website address. So if you could just check that out, and you are in the Northeast there near Barlow Trail. So if any of you have, just from an education perspective, walk into Vanessa's shop and just look at her product display, but then also the catalogs and online. There are so many different solutions. So thank you for that, Vanessa. That's awesome. We're going to segue right into Mike over at Digital Lifestyles, and you mentioned him, Vanessa. Your exact example we just did for a gentleman similar to that, where the gentleman contracted Parkinson's after we had done his primary project many years ago. So Mike was able to really trick his house out, completely automated, seamless. It looks like this guy is the most techie guy on the planet. He's in his 70s. And Mike set it all up with like single button, like open the door, see the door camera, turn on the TV, and Alexa and all this kind of stuff. So Mike, you are been at this business a long time. You're the CEO of Digital Lifestyles. You have a vast array of solutions for Calgarians. Today, we're going to focus on that automation side, which is evolving incredibly fast. Mike, let's start off today's session. By the way, thank you for joining us. But just my first question surrounding a success story you recently provided that I just alluded to. How does home automation help to assist me to live longer in my home? If you can help us with that.
Nice to be here, Paul. Thanks. It eliminates many of the physical and mental aspects of living in your own home. So when you have a physical or a mental disability that prevents you from executing sort of your daily tasks, that could be lights, it could be opening the blinds or closing blinds, it could be operating doors, it could be the door locks. It could be security issues. It could be even getting to the door to see who's there or to accept a parcel. Timely now with the whole COVID thing, where everybody is now being conditioned to get deliveries for everything. More and more, that requires some physicality to do that. Monitoring critical systems in your house, a water leak, temperature variations. If your mobility is compromised, you don't have the ability to get up and change the temperature. You might have a carbon monoxide issue, smoke, fire, once again, water leak, shutting off appliances like stoves, entertainment functions that we take for granted. You want to listen to music or TV. It could be something as simple as, in this gentleman's case, he couldn't operate a remote anymore. So that became impossible for him to actually turn on a TV and put something on that he wanted to watch or entertain himself. So essentially what we do is we roll all of those physical functions up to either a voice commands, the touch of a button on a smartphone or a tablet, or literally a large round button, plastic button that can sit there. And even if somebody has very limited mobility, if they can mash that button, we can make something happen in their house.
Wow.
Now, further to that, though, you know, when we use the word automation, all the kind of home automation, it's misused and misunderstood. There's a lot of these things that I just alluded to here that can happen sort of behind the scenes or automatically, automated. Things like your temperature, locking your doors, closing the doors, the lighting, for instance. At certain times of the day or night, all of that stuff can be timed so that you don't have to participate.
Wow.
It just happens. If you forget to, you know, if you can't go lock your door at the end of the day, it makes sure it's closed and it does it for you. It'll set your lights, and if there's an issue that you need to get up or somebody needs to get to you at night, we'll make sure that those lights stay on at 20%, or critical lights stay on at 20%. Again, all of those things are automated. So they're programmed in and they become part of your lifestyle. You no longer have to think or worry about them. Nobody has to execute that anymore.
Right. Right. And when you talk about your system, I think you guys patented this, or you've developed it, the FAST system. Could you just allude to what that system is? That what you just described, all those automation features? It
is. You know, we started doing this over a decade ago when this stuff was in its infancy. In fact, it really didn't exist. We just started putting together parts and pieces to make that happen. It stands for Family Automation and Seniors Technology, and that's really who it was developed for. You can see on that slide that these are all the things that, or most of the things that I just talked about. One of the things that I should mention too is that we create what's called a vacation mode too. So if you're still able and you're still, you're in this house and you might leave for the winter, for instance, we create what's called a vacation mode. And if you look at, or you sort of reference all the things that I just mentioned, we can make sure that your house goes through a routine of being lived in when you're not there.
Wow.
And further to that, it reports to you wherever you are in the world and lets you know what's actually happening. So you don't have to have a property management company or a family member or a neighbor to go in there and to do those checks all the time. You're literally doing those checks every day or as often as you want to.
So
your house is lived in.
That's a really good point. So would an insurance company recognize that?
They do now, absolutely. Wow. Yeah, and we're finding that on some of the larger properties, vacation properties, they're actually asking for a lot of these technologies now.
Wow. Like I just look at that bundle there. There's just an enormous amount of things. I mean, it's basically letting you know right to your smartphone or tablet what's happening from any emergency situation to, like you said, you can automate your lights to come on looking like it's being lived in at a certain time of the evening. Shutting them down, all of the blinds coming up and down. What an amazing thing. Plus water detection, smoke, fire, carbon
life
monoxide.
Safety really is what it is. Life and property safety. It covers off all of that. And there's more every month. There's more functions that are being added.
Wow. Absolutely amazing. Even from a caregiver's perspective, I'm thinking, again, the caregivers, especially with the dementia patient or whatever, they've got a lot of attention required. They're trying to give the caregiver, maybe the spouse, some respite time, and they can just hit one button. Mr. Jones wants the TV and he wants the blinds down. He wants his lights a certain setting. Boom, it's done.
You got it now.
Yeah.
See, you figured it out. One of the things that I should probably mention is what we call notifications. And notifications are messages. Think of it as a text message. And those text messages can be sent to everybody, anybody in particular, or multiple people at the same time. So it could be a caregiver, it could be family members. And what that simply means is, again, referencing everything that I talked about in the first place, whether it be, open doors, locks, lights, life safety things like carbon monoxide, smoke detectors, water leak, entertainment, even TV. If any of those things are left on or not done or undone, a notification can go out to a caregiver. So, for instance, you forgot to lock your door for whatever reason, or the door didn't shut, and if it's not shut by 8 p.m., a notification will go out. Or if it stays open for more than 2 minutes, a notification goes out. So if the homeowner or the resident isn't capable of dealing with that, those caregivers or family members are going to know. They need to address this.
What a great tool. Like I've got to, just in the interest of time, Mike, I've got to jump to your next slide, but I want to go through the case study of what you just talked about. But I mean, you just mentioned, you covered my second question, which was how does it help not only me, but my caregivers? I'm amazed. I mean, I shouldn't be. I know I've known you long enough to know you guys create some amazing things, but the fact that you can notify caregivers or other family members that could be there or not. I mean, Mike, you know the story with the case study. As I mentioned, this is the gentleman that developed Parkinson's about 10 years after we renovated their home. And so Catherine, you mentioned earlier about doing this in stages and crisis management, all of this. This became a crisis because he simply couldn't access his top story bedroom, nor did he want a stair lift. So we took as you can see, a small powder room on the main. There's a closet adjacent to it. You look at that door, it's a tiny pocket. So what we did is we opened that space up and we grabbed the closet space and now made a completely accessible shower that is big enough for him and his caregiver. And he took over the main floor dining room as his pseudo bedroom until he's ready to take that step of a transfer or a lift or an elevator. This is his temporary situation. That shower changed his life. Mike changed his life in that main floor dining because he can now, Mike, can you just go run through what can he all do from his iPad? What did you set him up for?
Okay, so there was a couple of things there. So at first we set him up with a smartphone and an iPad. But as you know, Parkinson's can be quite a progressive disease, and he was having difficulty at certain times of the day or on certain days, even executing a command or to being able to push a button. So we just got him one of those, large plastic buttons to do. But essentially what we did is we set him up so that he could operate the lights in the house. He could operate some window coverings. He can operate his TV and any of his entertainment, music, specific TV channels, door opener, auto door opener. So that's not just for himself, that's to let people in and out. If he's having a visitor or somebody coming over, he can unlock the door, let them in, and then close the door again without having to get up, obviously.
Awesome.
We also put some surveillance in there so he could see who's at the door, or if somebody was approaching the house, and it would send him a notification so that he could quickly flip over to a camera and take a look and see who it is, so that he had some security in there. And then as time went by, we would add certain other things that became more of an issue for him. He had trouble regulating his own temperature, so he liked to turn the temperature up and down. So obviously we automated the thermostats for him. And one of the other things that we did for him, sort of unrelated, is so that he could have video chats or FaceTimes, with family members and stuff, as we set that up so that it was sort of a one-word command, and then that would happen for him.
Wow.
And again, as this sort of progressed, we added on voice commands. As that technology gets better and better, we can duplicate that. So we managed to do that for him as well.
Beautiful.
So one of the other things that I probably should mention is that, a caregiver or a family member can also operate any of these functions themselves from a remote location.
Wow.
You could be in another country and you could open and close the door for that family member in their house. You can ensure that it's locked. You can ensure that the lights are on or off. And then you can also receive those notifications and you can verify by camera. It really locks down that house.
Mike, I have to interject because you know this story. That's exactly what this crisis is, what brought Mike into this picture. I hope I'm not being too personal with this. Names shall remain anonymous, but this gentleman had kind of early stages of Parkinson's. His wife left to, a faraway location, flew out that morning. This gentleman sadly fell between some furniture earlier that day, had nobody checking in on him. He almost died. 12 hours later, his family found him. and it was just an awful situation. And all that could have been averted had there been this technology in his home. And thank goodness the man has survived, and he's doing very well. I just saw him literally a few days ago. He's doing wonderful. A lot of it based on, to your point earlier, Catherine, another seminar that we did, or webinar, was the AHS care. His wife is getting respite care. She's a primary caregiver, and AHS is doing a wonderful job of caregiving and daily caregiving as he needs, transfers and all of that, and then respite care for his spouse. So Mike, thanks to you, this client, and just to make everybody clear, help everybody understand, this is gorgeous stuff. I look at this shower again. If you didn't have the walker in there, it's got a full down bench, you would not know this is accessible. It's curbless. You walk in. Hey, Catherine, anything medicinal looking besides the walker?
No, not at all. Again, it's like another one of those little spas, and I love that the seat folds down too. So if you want to use it, you can, but you don't need to. And
yes,
it's just set up for if you need it, it's there. But if not, you can just stand up and have a regular shower. So you have options, but it doesn't look institutional at all to me. Indeed. Yeah, I mean, you could take whatever. I mean, it could be a mother in childcare, right? Take what a great size shower to, little Tyke's just been playing in the mud, and you bring them inside, and you're inside the shower with them. Yeah, or a puppy. Or a puppy. Or a puppy. That was the thing I was thinking of. Yeah. Just came back from a walk and they're covered in mud and snow later. Indeed. Then, yeah, lots of space to just hose them down there. Yep. Yeah. Totally. So, Mike, thank you for that. If I could jump to the next slide, I think it's just a progression of that particular project there. I think one of the things I just wanted to kind of finish with, we're a little over time here, Mike, but this is such a fabulous topic. I mean, this is complex. Like the backdrop. I mean, if anyone on this webinar saw the wiring required for this, it's intense and it looks complicated. Can you tell me, is there a complex learning curve? I mean, I heard you talk about the big red button. Doesn't sound complicated to me, but could you expand on that in closing comments?
Well, essentially, if you can use your smartphone to make a telephone call, you can use this. And if you reference a slide in front of you, you can pretty much tell what you want to happen there by looking at, the color and what's written on the button. And we can personalize those. We can make them any size you want. We just literally use pictures and color, to personalize that. And that essentially, that's what you have to learn, that.
Right.
And sorry to jump in. I know we're over time. And Mike, for these can be set up for voice command too, right? So
yes, they can.
So if someone has tremors and they can't physically use their hands,
yes,
they can just say lighting and it'll go into that.
Yes.
Very cool.
Yeah. Now, what we would do though is we would create just sort of a check sheet of phrases that they would need to memorize. They would tell us the phrase that they prefer. Yeah. And then we'll make it work with that.
Awesome.
Fantastic.
And as an OT, you could even put that cheat sheet, tape it on the wall somewhere that they could, I forgot what am I supposed to say with this command, until they kind of get onto it, or early onset dementia, all of those things, right?
Right.
Yeah, fantastic, Mike. And all of you that have joined us today, www.digilife.ca. Mike's the CEO and founder over there. I have been Mike, if I went into your story, there's a reason you're so passionate about this. You've dealt with this in your own personal life, which I won't get into, but you've lived this through your childhood and then your early adult years and beyond with family and friends. So you're here because you love what you do and you love bringing solutions. So thank you. Any closing comments, Mike, before I jump into summary?
No, I think that covers everything off. I think we hit it all.
Awesome. And just for all of you that have joined us here today, we are going to have this on our YouTube channel. So we are going to, these are all recorded and they are on Facebook Live as well presently. Thank you for joining us here today, Vanessa, Catherine, Mike. Just really appreciate all of you joining us. And in summary, I'm just going to say, if you have any questions, jump on our chat line. By all means, throw us a question. We're happy to stay on for a little bit longer here. But I just want to say that wraps up our third webinar of our 5-part series. Thank you so much for your interest in all of this. What I consider this all important topic, not just for the aged, but for the young. I mean, we've got 1 in 5, I believe, is the statistic in Canada that relate to having a disability in Canada. And those are not all seniors. There's an enormous cross-section of folks that need accessibility solutions, like Mike talked about, like Catharine and Vanessa. And lastly, our next seminar will be on the all-important topic of resale. I've got a lawn care fellow right out my window that's decided to get his blower on right now. But we have a great topic coming up next Wednesday, same time, 1 o'clock, for resale and how does that affect your home's resale in terms of accessible retrofits. We're going to be covering also the private and AHS home care as it relates to senior home care costs. So invite your friends to that next Wednesday, same time. Again, on behalf of Catharine, pardon me, at Valley to Peak Occupational Therapy, Vanessa at 101 Mobility, Mike at Digital Lifestyles, and myself. Thank you for joining us today. And all of our panelists' contact information websites is there on that screen. By all intents of today, I think we've wrapped up some awesome information. There's been some great information here today. Thank you, panelists, and have a great week to all of you that joined us. See you next Wednesday, 1 o'clock, same place.